Good morning to all of you. Let me start by thanking the European Foundation of the Foundation of European Progressive Studies, and especially Maria, for the invitation. Let me also apologize because I was supposed to be with you tomorrow, but as you can imagine, tomorrow is going to be a especially difficult day for us because we will have the start of the deliberation at the United Nations, and particularly the opening of the Youth Summit. And I wanted to take this opportunity also to recognize other organizers of the meeting, and particularly the very inspiring words of Mary Robinson. Mary was referring to the efforts of many people to get the 1.5 goal into the Paris Agreement, but I think she deserves also particular credit, or special credit, because thanks to her, we also got a reference to human rights in the preamble of the Paris Agreement. I'm very happy to continue to be a part of the group of fans of Mary Robinson. Let me also welcome the principles that you have developed and the establishment of the steering committee. I think looking very quickly into the principles, there is a full coincidence with what we are intending to achieve at the United Nations. So I will not focus my remarks on the substance, because I think we are all, I'm talking to converters, if I may use the expression. But because of that, if you allow me, I would prefer to highlight some of the elements of this summit, which I think would be of interest for you, and on which we can continue to work. I think the first point, and coming back again to the words of Mary Robinson, it is important to highlight that this is a very inclusive event. It's a summit on which we will hear the voices of the children, the youth participants, but we will also hear the voices of indigenous peoples and unions and other social workers. So the social agenda, social justice, is very much into the agenda. We have included specifically work on what we call the social and political factors, the just transition, health, education, and it's going to be very important to reinforce those messages. Those messages are going to be shared not only during the weekend on a number of events that have been organized, and I invite all of you to look into the program of the weekend. It's available already online, but they are also going to be part of the Monday session because we have included a number of speakers on the list for that day. I can tell you that as I speak, probably 10, 15 minutes more, you will have the full list of participants on the Monday, and you will be able to see who is going to be on stage. Let me also use this reference to tell you that the Secretary General has invited member states, as it was already highlighted, to come with plans, not with speeches, not even beautiful speeches. But he has gone further than that. I think it would be useful for you to know that as a follow-up of the invitation, the Secretary General has wrote a note to all member states asking them to specify, to give elements of what their plans will contain. And on the basis of that information, plus the information that we were able to gather, we made a selection of countries that will make it to the stage. This is not a summit on which every single member state, every single head of state or government will be on stage. Only the best plans, only the most committed leaders are going to be on a stage. There are, and I need to be very clear, there are some leaders which are very committed that will not be in New York, but the majority that you will see in the list are those that were available to come. It's a very high-level list, because we have decided that this should not be an event as the previous one, not only because of the difference in asking for speeches or plans, but also because we want this to be not the end of a process, but rather the beginning of another one. Why the beginning? First of all, because we are absolutely conscious that even if we get a high level of ambition to be showcased on Monday, which is my hope, it will still be very low compared to what is needed. We all know that the 1.5-degree target demands radical changes in the way we consume and the way we produce, and radical changes that will imply for many countries to double or triple what they are doing today. And they need to commit to do that within 1 year. We need to get by the end of next year, according to the Paris Agreement, with new seriously enhanced NDCs, the national determined contributions, and a number of things need to happen. So the summit is kind of a springboard on which we hope that we will be able to initiate a process that will allow us, not only in the COP in Chile at the end of this year, but the COP in Europe next year, to consolidate and be on track, get back on track to attain the goal of the 1.5 degree. So this has also an implication for the UN system, which is, I think, quite important to be highlighted. That implies that the Secretary General will need to remain personally engaged in the follow-up of all the initiatives and proposals that are going to be presented on the weekend and the Monday. And he will need to commit the UN system as a whole to be much more supportive of actions from different stakeholders, not only governments, for those actions to become reality. It means that we will have kind of a program of action for the coming months on which the efforts of coordination are going to be fundamental. The system, and I can tell you that because I'm quite new to the UN system, but I am very old follower of the actions. The system needs to understand that it can no longer work in silos, and the system needs to understand that we are moving into implementation, that negotiations basically have ended, that there is no more time to get into agreements. And let me conclude with this. Mary was talking about the voluntary nature of the commitments. I think we are taking advantage of that, because if we assume that negotiations have basically ended, and we are moving into implementation, and we are assuming that most of the commitments were voluntary, now is the time to show where the leadership is. And countries do not need to wait for others to get into an understanding or an agreement to move forward. They can do it on their own. And we are going to showcase where leadership is on Monday. Coming from the civil society, coming from the business sector, obviously, coming from local governments, coming from federal or central government, everybody will need to show with facts whether they are responding to the demands of the youth that are on the streets today. And will certainly, I'm absolutely convinced, they will demonstrate the strength of their movement and the strength of their messages. So let's hope that, as I mentioned before, this is the beginning of a new chapter in the fight against climate change, and not only one more of those traditional events that we have hosted in the past. Thank you very much.